kitchen today, and this is a recipe that I got from America's Test Kitchen about 11 years ago, and it's super delicious. And basically what it is braised chicken thighs. So you quick saute the chicken thighs and then finish them off in the oven with some liquid, in this case white wine and chicken broth and some herbs. Now this chicken does take a while. It's in the oven for an hour and 15-20 minutes. And the preparation takes a while, so make it when you have plenty of time and you're in the mood for cooking. So let's get started. I'll show you how to make it. You'll need about 3 pounds of bone-in chicken thighs. That'll usually be between 6 and 8 thighs. You need 2 ounces of prosciutto, and you want a piece sliced about 1/4 inch thick. You can just get that right at your deli. Butter, olive oil. You'll also need some rosemary, sage, juice of 1 lemon, garlic cloves, some dry white wine, chicken stock or chicken broth, and I'm going to just make mine out of this better than bouillon that I have on hand. Then you'll need, of course, salt and pepper, some whole cloves, bay leaves, crushed red pepper flakes, and flour. Now, depending on where you buy your chicken thighs, you could have some excess skin, like you see here, and fat. So before you do anything, just trim that right off, just even with your chicken thigh. I got a little of the meat there, but that's okay. And I'll just go through and do that with all of my thighs. You can see this one has a chunk of fat here. You want your skin, but you just don't want all the excess. So that's kind of hanging over. So I'll just neaten it up like so. You'll need 12 sage leaves, and luckily I had some of this growing in my garden, so I'll just pick off the biggest leaves that I have. And simple as that, just grab the leaves. And you'll want 1 sprig of rosemary that's at least 4 inches. And just remove your leaves like so. Again, this was in my garden, so it's a little bit dried out actually, but that'll be fine. And save the stalk, because we're going to use that in just a few minutes. And then I'll mince up the leaves. And you'll want 4 medium-sized cloves of garlic. This one's a little large. And you'll just peel. And then slice it. I like to slice it lengthwise so there's a nice long pieces of garlic, and they're just nice thin slices. And slice your prosciutto into 1/4 inch cubes. So as I mentioned, it's sliced at about 1/4 inch, and so then just slice it into 1/4 inch cubes, like so. Hopefully you can see that. It's about like that. And then take your knife and just cube it up. Okay, I'll add a teaspoon roughly of olive oil to a 12-inch skillet, and you can see that this one's kind of deep because we're going to be putting some liquid in here, quite a bit of liquid. And the skillet you use, or the pan you use, has to be oven safe up to 325 degrees. And then we'll heat that oil up on medium heat for just a minute to get the oil kind of shimmery. And my oil is nice and heated up. I'll add my prosciutto. And you're going to cook this for about 3 minutes. Now add your sliced garlic right to the prosciutto. Stir it around and let that cook till it's light brown, about a minute to a minute and a half. Okay, the garlic is light brown. I'm going to turn off my flame for just a second and remove the garlic and prosciutto into a little bowl, and we'll set that aside. And you want to pat your chicken thighs dry, and then add some sprinkling of pepper on the skin side. Now I'll add 2 more teaspoons of oil. 1, 2. I'll turn the heat back on. Now put your chicken in your hot pan, skin side down. I'll add some pepper to this side of the chicken. And on your first side, you want to cook this till the skin is nice and brown. It'll take about 6 to 8 minutes. And do not move the chicken. It's been about 8 minutes. And it's looking nice and brown. So now I'll flip each one over. I'll leave them cook without touching them for another 5 minutes and check them to see if they've browned up. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. Woo. And it looks nice and brown. Yeah, and be really careful. You see how it's kind of spitting at me. So now what we'll do is remove the chicken. I'll turn the flame off just for a minute. And I'll remove the chicken onto a plate. And the chicken's not cooked through at this point. You might see some red on there. That's perfectly okay. So I'll set that aside for just a minute. Now you can see that there's quite a bit of fat in here. And we only want 2 tablespoons. I'm going to pour it off into a little dish right here. And then I'm going to add back 2 tablespoons into my pan. 1, 2. Okay, I'll turn my heat back on to about medium. And I'll add my flour. I've got 2 teaspoons of flour. I'll add that right to the pan. Just sprinkle it all over. And you want to keep stirring this for 1 minute. It's nice and bubbly, so I'll add my wine. And it's 2 cups of white wine. And just want to add that really slowly. And I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, but you want to use a dry white wine. This one is a Sauvignon Blanc, which it happens to be my favorite wine anyway, so I usually have it on hand. And if you've never tried it, you should give it a try if you like wine. It's really delicious. And then I'll add in 1 cup of broth, chicken broth. And again, I use this better than bouillon. And all it is a teaspoon of this to a cup of boiling water. So I'll add that right in. Stir that in. Scrape the bottom so you get all the good brown bits off the bottom. And you want to bring this to a simmer and simmer for about 3 minutes. Now I'll stir in 4 whole cloves and my reserved rosemary stem. I have 2 bay leaves and my 12, I think I've got about 14 or so sage leaves. I'll add 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. And I'll add back in my prosciutto and garlic that I sauteed earlier. Give that a stir. And I'll add back the chicken back in. And hopefully what you're looking for is to have the chicken in your liquid but not covering the top of the chicken. And that way the chicken will stay crispy on top. So you want it skin side up. Okay, I'll turn my stovetop off and I'll put this in the oven at 325 degrees for about an hour and 15 minutes. Now remove the chicken from the pan, put it in your serving dish. Now turn the heat on, bring it to a simmer, and reduce it until it's a little bit thicker. Okay, it's simmering and reduced. That took about 1.5 to 2 minutes. I'll turn the heat off. I'll add a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice and 2 tablespoons of butter and the minced rosemary. And I'll stir all that together. And I'll pour the juice right over the chicken. And I did want to mention, don't salt anything until after you've completed cooking the chicken, because that prosciutto has a lot of salt, and I've always found that there's plenty of salt without adding extra. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Delicious.